Welcome back to the Film Library, a Kanopy podcast where we dive into cinema's deep cuts, hidden gems, and cult favorites, all streaming for free with your library card. I'm Kristy Puchko, entertainment editor at Mashable.com, and lifelong believer that movies make the best Mother's Day plans.
And I'm Jeff Rauseo, film collector, movie rewatcher, and the kind of person who gives movie recommendations instead of flowers.
This week, we're honoring Mother's Day the only way we know how, with movies that explore the beauty, complexity, joy, and sometimes horror of motherhood.
We each picked 5 titles from Kanopy's catalog that reflect just how wide-ranging and unforgettable stories about mothers can be. From the tender and nostalgic to the mysterious and the straight-up disturbing, this episode proves that motherhood is cinematic gold. Now, before we get into it, I want to kick things off with an icebreaker. So, Kristy, what's a movie your mom loved that totally shaped your taste in movies?
My mom was a big Golden Age musical fan, which I'll be honest, I was not typically very into, but the one that converted me was Singin' in the Rain. I love Gene Kelly. That movie is so funny. It's about a silent film star who wants to make a musical as the pictures start going into talkies. And he teams up with this like young ingenue that he thinks can help him do it. And I've seen this movie so many times. It is just endlessly funny. Also, Gene Kelly, still hot as all get out, as they used to say. I'm bringing that one back. Hot as all get out.
I like it.
It's hot as all get out summer. But yeah, truly, truly love that movie. There's dancing and singing in that just still blow my mind, and it made me a musical fan. It made me like every musical I watch now. I'm like, are you Gene Kelly though? So the standard is high.
That's a high bar. Yeah, if everyone has to live up to Gene Kelly.
Get Gene Kelly or get out.
Yeah, they must all fall short because he's the GOAT, right? Yeah, for me, it's actually the OG 1978 Halloween, which my mom is like kind of a horror fan. She like watches them and doesn't really talk about them or anything, but like she was always into them. And I think that came out when she was right in that like teenage 13, 14-year-old range and probably went and saw it. But I just remember that was like my intro to horror movies, was watching that on AMC, like on cable. So it was all cut up and everything during Halloween time. But she was like, you could watch this as long as it's the TV edit. And that just kind of set me off. I have Michael Myers masks all around my room. I have busts. I have every version of the movie. It's kind of my comfort kickoff to fall movie. And it's really what turned me into like this horror movie fan that I am today.
I love that.
But getting back to our lists, what do you think makes a movie like a Mother's Day movie?
Well, see, in making my list, I was trying to think Mother's Day is not the same thing for everyone for a lot of reasons. We all have different kinds of moms. And so I tried to take that into account as I was working on my list. But I wanted to start off with a movie that meant a lot to me as a kid, even though the mom in this movie is nothing like my mom. I just feel like I need to make that clear.
It's a good disclaimer. I should put that on mine too.
But my first pick is Mermaids from 1990. Winona Ryder stars as a devout Christian girl who is repeatedly outraged by her free-spirited mother, played by Cher. And her mom, kind of anytime the world gets too confining, her mom picks up with her and her little sister, played by baby Christina Ricci, and they move somewhere else. And in this story, they basically move to Boston. Cher meets Bob Hoskins. They're starting a romance. Meanwhile, Winona Ryder is getting up to mischief with a hot teen boy where she's like, I want to be a nun, but also. And it's such a terrific story because it's all told from the perspective of this teen girl who is just like, ugh, my mother. And by flipping the rebellion, that instead of it being this like wild child teen girl, it's this girl who is like desperately obsessed with saints and wants to be a nun. There's something kind of unexpected in that, but there's also something really familiar, I think, in the way as a teen girl, it's really hard to connect to your mom because you're trying to figure out who you are. And a big part of that is inherently distancing yourself from your parents to figure that out. And I think this movie handles that with such heart, and it's just genuinely very funny. It's directed by Richard Benjamin, who also did The Money Pit, and one of my also childhood favorites, My Stepmother is an Alien. So I feel like it has a really great sensibility. And also, I love Bob Hoskins. Like, everybody in this is terrific, but like Bob Hoskins, man, what a charmer. So like, I think this is a really terrific movie. It does have dramatic moments, but it's overall a very happy film. And it just, there are moments I remembered from this film as a kid that watching again as an adult, I was just like, that's still magic. That's still magic. It's just a really lovely story about mothers and daughters and how you don't need to be alike to love each other.
That sounds like one that we need to watch with my I didn't know it took place in Boston either. So that's super fun because that's right down the street, but we've been on a Cher kick lately. So
It's a
we
great
need
kick
to
to be
we
on.
need to watch that one. We just watched Moonstruck and I was like, "Okay, let's do more Cher." Adding to the watch list. But yours were so happy that now we're gonna pivot so hard to we're gonna pivot so hard to my pick, which now if I think about Mother's Day movies, really the way I was taking this is I'm looking at movies that like I've got a mom, I'm married to a mom, I know how hard motherhood is, but I could never know how hard it is from their perspective. I see it, but I can't even imagine. And so a lot of my stuff really comes back to like trauma of motherhood and like how difficult that can be. And, there's a little bit of grief in here, but I just kind of took it as like there's something horror movies play with mothers in a really weird way. They're always been involved. Think back to Psycho and like Mother, and like there's always something about mothers. And I don't know why I went that direction, but that's what I feel like makes a Mother's Day movie. It's just like a powerful woman who's going through a lot and just giving like that realistic, raw look at that, and just showing people like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I can't imagine. I'm just a dad. What are dads in movies? Dads are just goofballs. So like this is much more difficult, and I think there's a reason why a lot of like the horror psychological genre plays with that. But my first movie, taking a hard pivot, is the Babadook from 2014. So it's definitely a horror movie. It's psychological. A lot of people may think it has one of the most annoying kids in horror, but I think if you look at it that way, you're kind of missing the point. Having had a kid now, I'm like, he's not annoying. He's going through a lot, and that's how kids process it, and it's like really genuine. But
I
it's
do want to
based.
say, I feel like it could be both.
Yeah, it is. It is both. That's fair. That's some of it is just pure. They're chaotic, and some of it is, hey, they don't know how to process. And this one's all about it's a single mother. She's raising her son after her husband dies. So like she's going through it, son's going through it, a lot of transitions. They're trying to figure this out and like kind of navigate it together. And then one night, the kid picks up this little pop-up book called Mr. Babadook, which we're gonna play with props here for a second because I worked with IFC for the 10th anniversary release of the Babadook, and they sent me a Babadook pop-up book, like a legit one, which is so
Very
cool.
cool.
It's a very, very creepy book, but I was so thankful to have that because I love this movie. But he picks out this book, and and the mother's like, "What is this?" And it's one of those classic like, "We're gonna throw it in the trash," and then it shows up on the front door. All right, we're gonna burn it, and then it's in the bed the next night. Like it's just you can't get rid of this thing, and it's all kind of this metaphor for depression and grief and the struggles of parenting through that. Like everybody's dealing with something and then having to bring your own little human into that and try to deal with their emotions while dealing with yours. And when something really hard happens, like it can be overwhelming and just unravel. And that's kind of what you start to see happen. I actually think it ends on kind of a nicer note by the end of the movie, but it's a tough watch. There's some scary moments, a few jump scares, but it reminds me more of like expressionist type stuff like a
Hmm.
Nosferatu or Caligari, like mixed with a little bit of the new, like it's got that A24 horror vibe of like a Hereditary or The Witch, and it's just like a raw emotion, messy emotional movie. Like
Yeah.
that's just what it is. But it's great. The director Jennifer Kent's gone on and done a couple of other things which have also been great. I just think it's not just scary, but it is like something emotional and symbolic. Like you take something from it. It's not just pure horror. It's not meant to scare you. It's meant to make you think. I think more than anything.
100%. I love Jennifer Kent's Babadook. That's one of my truly favorite horror movies, and I think you're right. I think it speaks to an element of motherhood because I think the main character is so she feels so challenged by the fact that mothers are always supposed to be kind and patient, and
Right.
she's losing that. And I think the way the film deals with that is actually really brave. And I think it made sense to me, and I am not a mom, so yeah, I think there's a catharsis in that for sure.
Yeah. No, it made sense to me 10 years ago before I any of that stuff. I was like, I get it. And then I was like, maybe I should call my mom. It was like one of those.
That's definitely the takeaway from most of these movies, I think, is
Yeah,
call your mom.
yeah.
Speaking to that, I'm gonna jump to actually then to a movie that's very much about calling your mom, Terms of Endearment. It's a classic. It's from 1983. I remember as a kid people talking about this movie a lot, and I remember like the trailers, and it won 5 Academy Awards. It was a big box office hit. I don't remember now the first time I watched it, but I feel like I was definitely too young to watch it considering what it's about. But Deborah Winger stars as a middle-aged woman who it follows her entire adult life and her relationship with her mother, played by Shirley MacLaine. And again, very different people. Deborah Winger's character is like very excited to have kids and marry this guy played by Jeff Daniels, and her mom is this like genteel Southern belle that has very high standards that her husband definitely does not meet. And so then it becomes this whole kind of thing where they are constantly calling each other, they're constantly checking in, even when they're mad at each other, even when their lives are messy. They are always on the phone, and it's such a fluid movie. I was surprised how literally like one scene they're like she's like, "Mom, I'm pregnant." And the next scene like the kid is like 5 and then he's 10. And it doesn't feel like disconnected, which is really incredible. It really covers decades of a life, and it covers a lot of things like affairs and terminal cancer diagnoses and all these things. But the film feels very fluid and very alive and funny. It's directed by James L. Brooks. So despite the fact, I feel like I, as a kid, understood this was a movie that made people cry. And absolutely, the end especially is like very tearjerker. But what I thought was so, I think why it impacted people so much in the 80s, I was a kid and definitely wasn't getting this then, is just that, like, again, it recognizes that moment where we as adults begin to understand that our moms aren't just our moms, they're also people.
Mm,
And you see that not just between the relationship between Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine, but also between Deborah Winger's oldest son, who is in like a difficult age, let's put it, when his mom is starting to die. And she has this really beautiful speech to him about how she loves him and she forgives him for kind of being a kid like the Babadook kid. Like just not like they're very different energy, but like it's a very sweet story. And I thought like I am very impressed that that character had the forethought to be like, you're going to look back on this moment and hate how you're acting. And I want you to know that's okay. And I get it. And I love you.
mm.
And I think that in real life, there are times where we just don't know what to say. And I think in that time, moments like this where maybe you didn't say the right thing, movies like this give you the chance to imagine you had. And I think that can be really powerful. And like personally, I am definitely one of those daughters who likes to watch a tearjerker with my mom. And Terms of Endearment is like a really good pick for that.
Yeah.
Or we'll watch it separately and then call each other and
Call
talk
each other
about it.
out. Yeah, no, and the pacing of that too though is like so real because like I mean I feel like I had a kid yesterday and he's about to be 4. So it's like, yeah, it feels like about 10 minutes in a movie sometimes. Like the it's true, like life moves like that. And yeah, I do like that because there are so many moments in your life where you're like you have a different realization about who your parents are. And there's like there's like significant one like 10, 20, then you're 30, then you're like 40 and they're aging and you're like, man, this is just totally different. And then you end up taking care of them and the whole dynamic
Yeah.
shifts. And it's, yeah, those movies now, I don't know if I could get through them the way I could a few years ago. It's like it's so different as I've gotten older. But if you want to get weird again and really dark, this is okay. So this one's really sad because it is a true story, but the documentary about it fascinates me because of the mother. It's Who Took Johnny. It's from 2014. It's a tough documentary. It's a true crime documentary. It's gonna stick with you. It's all about the case of Johnny Ghosh, who's this 12-year-old. He's a paper boy from Iowa, disappeared in 1982. And this was like 1982. They're like just starting to come around. You watch all these true crime documentaries and they're like, well, your kid has to be missing for a week before we call the police. And it was like, this was kind of the shift in that. This was literally, I believe he was the first kid like on a milk carton. Like he is that kid. And on the surface, it's like a missing child case and they're sad, but it becomes something a lot bigger and the movie becomes something a lot bigger. it gets into like conspiracies and cover-ups, but the filmmakers keep it grounded the whole time. A lot of that coming from Johnny's mother, and she's really a main character in this, and she is heavily involved. She interviews throughout the whole thing. Like, she has a ton of screen time, and she's like the emotional center of it all. And it's not even, you feel for her because it's like she's being told there's this conspiracy and there's that conspiracy and there's kids underground in the desert and maybe he was there and he was taken, and she's like just trying so hard to find the truth, and they have no answers. And the documentary takes some wild turns, and she tells stories of contact with him that she says she's had as an adult, and that he is still out there, and you don't know what to believe. And it's just like you almost just end up feeling so bad for the mother because it's that unresolved, right? You can't grieve because it's unresolved. She's searching so hard for truth that she'll take anything anybody feeds her at this point as a tip. She'll go down a rabbit hole because she just wants to know. And I can't imagine what that feels like. So it's like a really powerful documentary that goes beyond just like, oh, this is a missing child case and this is true crime. And it doesn't exploit that, which I don't love the ones that get like, especially when it involves kids. Like, let's not exploit the situation too much. It takes a much bigger look at like what's going on in a family that happens to,
Mm-hmm.
and the grief and what she's going through. But it's definitely like respectful. It's grounded. It doesn't go too crazy. It brings up some really interesting things that make you go, huh, kind of like maybe I am going to get into this conspiracy, and then it kind of brings you back. But it's just, I think it's a must watch. It's one of the better documentaries that I've seen, as long as you can kind of stomach some of the content in it, which is tough if you have kids or you have nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever, that are that age. It's a hard thing to watch, but such an interesting look at Noreen, who's the mother, and her journey through this. It's like a real human story, as sad as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bring me any joy to watch it, but I feel the emotion. Like, it really does make you feel something powerful.
Sure. My next pick also, I feel like, is a very emotional film. It's very different. It's called Daughters of the Dust. It's from 1991, written, directed by Julie Dash. This is an extraordinary family drama set on a remote island off the coast of South Carolina at the turn of the 20th century. And there, the Pizant family, whose ancestors were enslaved people, are debating whether to stay on the island where the Golal culture is preserved, or to move to the mainland where there are new opportunities, but also the risk of losing touch of their roots. So Dash's depiction of Golal culture is just rapturous, as is the ensemble of the story, is told with no protagonist. Like, there's a bunch of different characters that you're following, including a character called the Unborn Child, who is literally from the future coming back to reflect on what led to her being born. And it's just a really gorgeous story. It's a very influential film. If you've ever seen Beyonce's Lemonade and then you watch this, you're going to be like, I see where a lot of those things came from. And it's also a cultural combination of, this culture, but like, it's the long ornate white dresses on these gorgeous Black women, these powerful performances of a cast who is discussing prejudice and the past, present, and future, and their awareness of legends and spirituality. And even the name, the Daughters of the Dust, even the name, the Daughters of the Dust, speaks to that. And I saw this in college, and it cracked my mind open. Like, I didn't know movies could behave like this. It's not following a strict narrative structure. There's a sense of spirituality and hoodoo in it. And it's just such a captivating film because you're getting to know all these characters and why they want to stay or why they want to leave. And it's hard to make a clear decision as an audience member and go like, well, clearly this is the thing you do. So I became very invested every time I've watched this on like, what's their decision going to be? And it's relevant to Mother's Day, not only because there are mothers and daughters involved, but also there's a strong matriarch character who is trying to pass down these traditions while also respecting that the children are going to be the future and they're going to make choices that she doesn't necessarily agree with. But while she's here, she's trying to give the best advice she can. And I think what's really incredible is that she gives advice I wouldn't necessarily expect, it's just so moving. And like, I think it really reflects how mothers are trying to protect their children, but also preserve family traditions and how that can be really challenging, especially in a newfangled world where people are bringing photograph cameras around the island. And it's just
Mm.
such an extraordinary movie. I was so glad it was on Kanopy because I hadn't seen it in a few years. And every time I watch it, I'm just like, cinema, you know?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I guess I was one of those people with the camera, but it is a fascinating culture. I've been down to South Carolina and done some like cultural tours of the Gullah, like all the cultural tour. They have a couple things throughout South Carolina, and we were my wife and I still talk about it. Like it was fascinating that culture. So I did not know about this movie, but it sounds like a really interesting take and look at that. And
Yeah,
you're gonna
the
have to
the cameras, it's actually an element in the movie where someone comes to take their photos to commemorate.
yeah,
And it's a
I
really
get.
interesting thing where it plays with what do cameras actually capture? Because at one point, like the child who hasn't been born yet, like appears in the frame, and he's like, "There wasn't a kid there. Like, what's going on?" And not in like a ghost way, but in this very playful, like existence is more than what you literally see.
Mm, yeah, that's a deep one.
It's really good. I
That
really love
sounds
it.
very deep. Yeah, no, I'll have to check it out. Well, I have another deep one. Now, this is I guess you'd call it horror, but it's definitely more like art house than anything else. It's The Eyes of My Mother from 2016, and this one doesn't really follow a mother. It follows a young woman who's dealing with a lot of stuff from her childhood. The eyes of my mother kind of being like this look, like you're becoming your mother, you're seeing the world through the eyes of your mother as you grow up, and now you've become a young woman and you're trying to like figure out how to deal with all of this. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different take on motherhood because it's from the child's perspective. But it's only 76 minutes long, so it's like a quick watch. It's black and white, and it just follows this woman. Her name's Francesca. She grows up on a farm, secluded farm, has some trauma in her childhood, and then you just kind of watch her descent into isolation and kind of emotional numbness and obsession. And it's dark, but I think anybody who's dealt with any of that sort of childhood trauma and your inner child and all of that comes out as you grow, like will feel this very deeply. And it's a quick watch. I mean, it's unsettling, it's slow, it's art house. Like it's what you'd expect. I'd compare it to something like an Eraserhead. Like it's a weird one, but if you stick with it, and I think if you connect to it, you'll really feel something from it that's super powerful, because I think we've all been there depending on what level we're at. I mean, some people can get to this level, maybe you haven't, but we all feel differently, and like you just understand what this woman is going through. And it was the debut film, director Nicholas Pesci, so it's like this obviously this guy's dealing with something because this is what comes out as his debut film. I mean, it's a black and white nightmare fever dream type movie, but it's got to be deeply personal to him and probably many others as well. So it's a little, I'd call it a quiet punch to the gut. It's more like a grab your gut and twist it a little bit and just see how you're doing today, because depending on the day, this one may hit you in different ways.
Yeah, that is a wild one. I've seen it a while ago, but I remember some scenes very distinctly.
Yeah, I mean it's I wouldn't call it mainstream by any means, but if you're looking for something off the beaten path, that's a pretty cool movie.
Off the Beaten Path is actually a good segue to my next choice, which is Petite Maman, which loosely translates to Little Mother. It's from 2021. It's from Celine Sciamma, who also did Tomboy and Girlhood, and most famously Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This is a very sweet story about grieving and understanding your mom better. But it's in a kids movie. Basically, it's a French film about a little girl named Nellie whose grandmother has just passed away, and Nellie is upset because Nellie didn't have a chance to say goodbye. And they go to her mother's house, like her mother's childhood home, to clean it out. And her mom is kind of dealing with all these big emotions, and Nellie and her are not really connecting over it. And then Nellie goes into like the nearby like woods and meets a little girl, and she starts becoming friends with this girl and realizes that somehow she has time traveled and met her mom as a little girl. And the two of them become friends, and through that, she begins to better understand who her mom is and what that means. And through that, they are better able to communicate about the grief they are experiencing with her grandmother. It's such a lovely film because a lot of it is just watching two little girls play and have the kind of conversations little girls are going to have about trying to understand things that seem so beyond understanding. But it's a really beautiful mother daughter story that was very critically heralded and is very gently told. It's a wonderful and unconventional time travel tale about empathy, and it reminds us that our moms may not have all the answers and they may not be so different from us. It's kind of a running theme today. It's
No,
like our
totally.
like stories of like, yeah, your mom's different from you, but that doesn't mean she doesn't care. It just maybe you guys are not on the same timeline just yet. It's a really, really terrific movie.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. Not on the same timeline. When they get on the same timeline, they connect. Like that's cool. But yeah, I mean, it is a common theme. Just like mothers are people. They're just people. They're just like they just had a kid one day and they're just like trying to figure it out. Like I totally get that now that I never got before. And there's a lot of themes like that. Like just we're all just trying to do our best, whether you're a mother or not. Like we're just trying to do our best. But mine is a little bit my next one is a little bit wild. So you got bear with me because this is the weirdest one on my list. I've given you a weird list, but this is the weirdest one. I have this movie on Blu-ray, so it's a cool one for me. But it's called Mother's Day from 1980. So
So dead on. Dead on
it's dead
theme.
on. I mean, this is what this episode's all about, right? Like this should be your first watch.
Crushed it.
But if this is your first watch, you might have a kind of messed up mother, or you might be a little messed up because this one's pretty wild. It is essentially it's a trauma horror movie. It's gory, crazy. It's a pretty simple setup. You get three women go camping. They get kidnapped by these two crazy brothers, and the two crazy brothers have an equally crazy mother who eggs them on, and she is the worst mother. This is a bad mother in the list of our movies. This might be the worst mother of the list. She is horrible. So it's backwoods horror. It's 1980. It's when everybody's trying to capitalize on Halloween and Friday the 13th. So we're gonna make a horror movie about literally every day that has a name. We're gonna have My Bloody Valentine and Mother's Day and April Fool's Day, and we're gonna do them all. So it's one of those, but in the violence is like really it's cartoony. It's what you'd expect from Trauma. It's kind of punk rock and just loud and messy. But if you like that, if you like trauma movies, it has something to say about gendered dynamics and how mothers raise their kids, even if it kind of says it by taking a baseball bat to your face, it does it does have something to say. So if you can pull something out of that, but ultimately it's just kind of a fun, wacky. It is kind of on the Last House on the Left side of things, but more Trauma's version of that. So it's a wacky, wild time. If you like Texas Chainsaw and Hills Have Eyes and stuff like that, like you'll enjoy this.
Nice. I haven't seen that one, so I'll have to check that out.
It's uh, it's one of those I'm like, I don't know if I recommend it to everybody, but it's not boring. It's interesting.
I'll take
So
that.
you will definitely you'll be entertained.
Well, my last pick is a dark one, but I just found it too moving to not include. It's Relic. It's from 2020. It's directed and written by Natalie Erica James, and it's an Australian horror film where Emily Mortimer stars as a middle-aged woman who is taking her teen daughter to her mother's house to kind of check in, and the house is dilapidated and there's something off with her mom, and it becomes a kind of haunted house story where there's like something in the house and it's spreading, and it's a very creepy film. But what I found so affecting is that essentially it becomes a metaphor for like dementia or chronic illness, where you watching an elderly parent slip away slowly and inescapably. And so it's kind of about the helplessness of like what that feels like. It's a scary film, and not because it's, very suspenseful. Natalie does such a great job with that, but also because like you begin to realize what they're actually talking about. and it becomes, about a lineage of women and how they're dealing with trauma and how they're dealing with things that might get passed down. And the first time I watched this, I was kind of numb afterwards. And then when I watched it again, I was like, oh, that's because this hit me so hard that the first time I just kind of shut down. So, a warning. But I do think that, I personally find sometimes that when I'm going through something and it's hard to talk about, watching a movie about it is a really great way to give my feelings a space to be felt. So, if you're dealing with grief, if you're dealing with, these kind of slow progressive illnesses, I think Relic can actually be kind of an unexpected comfort. Not because the movie is comforting, but because you're not the only one who's experiencing something like that. And sometimes just knowing that makes you feel a little less alone.
Yeah, no, 100. That's a great movie, and I watched it right around the same time we were going through my dad's mother, like going through, and granted, like she was 91 before it ever really hit, so like thumbs up, Nana, you had a great run, but like the last couple of years were rough. It was really
Yeah.
rough, and it was hard on my dad, and he wouldn't watch this because he hates horror movies, but I watched it, and it hit, and it does make you like that's what I'm most terrified of. It's just like that, just slowly drifting away. And having watched it, it is comforting in a weird way, but also really does kind of numb you up. Like I 100% felt that, just like numb afterwards.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I relate to it too, but yeah, I'm sorry. That
Yeah,
is tough.
it's it's life, but that's a real.
Right. But that's actually like exactly. It's life, and so I think part of us are like it's that happens, whatever, and it's like to be able to watch something this poetic dealing with it.
Yeah,
I think making it surreal, making it a nightmare allows us to tap into it is life, but it's also a nightmare.
yeah, no, both. Yeah, both things can totally be true. Life is sometimes a nightmare. It's yeah.
If you take nothing away from our Mother's Day episode, let it
There you
be.
go. I hope we could
Sometimes
cheer you up this Mother's Day.
sometimes life is a nightmare.
Well, I have I have one here that I think is a fun movie, but I've never seen it, so I only know this is my pick of like I want to see this, so I'm putting it on my list here for the record so I can go watch it. I know of this movie only through like drag culture, realistically.
That's
This
valid. That's
and
valid.
it's Mommie Dearest from 1981, starring Faye Dunaway. It's the like Joan Crawford biopic, but it seems like it's so much more over the top than that based on what
Well,
I know about it.
more specifically, it's based on the memoir that Joan's daughter wrote. And,
Okay.
and Joan's daughter did not hold
Did
back.
not get along.
You love drag
Right.
culture, so she spilled the tea.
And so there was an episode of Drag Race, I think it was the last season, where they just did like a Joan Crawford like episode, and this was part of it, and no wire hangers. Like I know that, very well aware of what that is, but I've never actually watched the movie. It is on my list. There's a great Blu-ray release of it from Paramount that I have, and I need to go watch this. I'm glad it's on Kanopy so more people can check it out. But yeah, I've been on a campy movie run a little bit lately.
Good. That's
We
great.
watched Moonstruck, Death Becomes Her, Clue. Like I just been kind of going into that. So this is next on the list, and I think it's a good one to watch on Mother's Day. Feels like it ties in.
I mean, it does tie in, especially if your mom was like Joan, I guess. But I will say I watched this. I snuck it when it was like on the pay channels when I was younger, and I was very into it. And I thought it'd be really funny and cheeky to call my mom "Mommie Dearest," which she did not appreciate. She also didn't deserve. That was me 100% just being a brat. But no, I think this movie's fantastic because it's so extra, it's so
Mm,
big, and I love how unapologetic it is. And I think it's because it's like I think it's reaching for how things feel, like not how they were, how they feel. So everything is very big and
mm.
yeah, once you watch this, you will realize that RuPaul is referencing this movie like almost every episode.
That's
But
that's how
also,
it feels. So I was like,
yeah,
I need to watch this so that I'm up to date here with the culture.
yeah, and now we're going out not just on an episode that is a Mother's Day episode, but a Call Me Mother episode.
Exactly. The ultimate mother.
Well, I think that's everything. That's our Mother's Day list.
That's a it's a hell of a list. So
We crushed
buckle
it.
up. Yeah, buckle up. There's a lot of ups and downs there, and you'll have fun with this one. It's an interesting list for sure. So, whether your idea of a Mother's Day watch is cuddling up with a heartfelt drama or nervously watching through your fingers, there's something for you on Canopy.
All the films we talked about today are on the show's notes and over at Canopy's Letterboxd HQ page. If you're inspired to check any of them out, they're streaming free on Canopy. No ads, no subscriptions, no credit card, just your library card.
Canopy is available through participating public or academic libraries, and it gives you access to more than 30,000 titles. Just know that access to titles will vary by country and library. Put simply, it's basically a treasure chest for movie lovers.
We drop new episodes twice a month, so be sure to subscribe to the Film Library. And if you like this one, leave us a review and share it with your fellow film fan. It really helps us keep the conversation going.
You can start watching today at www.canopy.com through participating libraries and universities.
And keep up with us on social. I'm the Kristy Puchko on Instagram, and you can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. Just search Kristy Puchko. That's KristyPuchko.
And I'm Jeff Rauseo. You'll find me on all the socials and on Letterboxd. Just search my name, JeffRauseo. So thank you for listening, and give your mom a hug, or maybe just text her a horror movie recommendation.
I mean, truly, nothing says I love you like the Babadook, right?
You're right.